to one particular area in West Limerick. It covers all, which we are looking into at the moment. Delighted to be joined with one man that has a story to tell about the inability of the escaping protocol and other matters pertaining to his farming practice. And Dan Brennan joins us here from Castlecomer in County Kilkenny. Dan, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to be here with you. Dan, just to talk to us a little bit about where did it all begin?
Good evening, John. I suppose my story started in the 90s. I was a young fella, and we know how sort of cattle weren't thriving. Our vet at the time was Michael Lamb in Kilkenny, and he tried various different minerals and vaccinations and different things. And I suppose I'll fast forward to 2002. 2002, Michael knew there was something seriously wrong on our farm, so he went into the lab in Kilkenny, and his first letter was to the lab in Kilkenny that a toxic agent would have to be considered on this farm, that he had exhausted all other avenues. The lab from Kilkenny came out to us. They gave possibly a day a week waste for the first year or two. In 2003 and 4, they conducted a feeding trial first, and they found that the cattle were performing extremely badly for the winter, and at times all the cattle would all lose weight together. Then in 2004 they put another feeding trial in place, and they bought cattle out of the farm in Abbottstown, and they got an independent man to feed them, and they found that the cattle there was a farm used 3 mile away as a farm to use as a
base even?
The base, and they found the cattle went ahead fine on that farm, but on our farm all the cattle lost weight, including the department's cattle at one specific part of the winter finishing up. So therefore our vets weren't happy with the progress that was being made, and Mary White got involved. She was county councillor in Kilkenny Carr region at the time, and she sent a petition to Brussels for us at the time. And the people in Brussels came over to look at the farm in 07, and they said that there was obviously something wrong here, that all the trees were dying on our farm, and coincidentally our farm is in the high fallout area from the local brick factory, and they said that this would all have to be taken into consideration. During that time UCD got involved, and they done a feeding trial, and they found during that feeding trial, for the first while the factory was closed, the cattle would thrive no problem, but when the factory was open it was a different story. When the factory was closed, the cattle were putting on 0.78 of a kilo in the day. When the factory was open, they were only putting on 0.13 of a kilo a day.
So there was a big difference, a huge difference actually.
A massive difference, but this was explained away. During the same investigation, there was cadmium found in the blood of our cattle that had an extremely high level for about 6 or 8 months. But for some strange reason or another, they came back and they told us that 6 months of our bloods got lost and got contaminated. So
6 months.
I'm 6
months. Postal Service.
Yeah, well, they supposedly got contaminated in the lab that was assessing them at the time.
Right. That is one side of the story. Now it relates also to an industrial unit. It's a CRH, I think, that was in operation at the time, and matters then progressed from there in a downward scale. Now, when you saw the trees were dying, that was a frightening aspect, because there was something very seriously wrong then, atmospheric wise.
Yeah, well, there was 4 different people looked at the trees during the course of the investigation. Tigers looked at them, and they concluded that there was something affecting the trees. Jack Gardner of UCD looked at them, and he concluded that there was something affecting the trees. Dermot Slevin looked at him, he concluded the same, and some personnel from Tigers looked at him. But there was no specific reason given, but that was seemed to be located to our farm. The damage seemed to be located to our farm for some reason or another.
Yes. Now, going to that investigation, how did it end?
The conclusions in the official report are that the brick factory was not affecting our farm.
Right.
That's the official conclusions. And that the problems on our farm were meant to be multifactorial in nature.
Right.
And that's the conclusions in the official report. But what's interesting in our case is that the factory closed in 2008. Since the factory has closed in 2008, our cows were milking about 3.5 or 4 gallons around that time. Our cows are doing 6 gallons, no problem a day now.
Nearly double.
Yeah. Our cattle were growing at 0.34 of a kilo a day while the factory was open all during that period. Now our cattle are growing at least 0.6 or 0.65 kilo a day since the factory closed. Another real interesting thing is, while there was severe environmental damage done to our farm, now the trees have blossomed and things have changed completely. Okay, I know there's lots of dead trees still on our farm to show that this actually happened, but the environment has changed massively.
Yes. So, when the factory closed, can you remember what year the factory closed?
December 2008.
2008.
Yes.
So we'll say, give it a year, 2009, and no toxic agents or whatever was hitting the atmosphere.
It took a year for us to notice it.
Yes.
There was no change in 2009. It was from 2010 on, and the first thing we noticed, our cows started to make much better.
Yes.
And that has been the case ever since.
One question I want to ask you. Do you and your colleagues in the farming industry, your friends, your neighbours, do they have faith in the Irish system? Because what I've learned through Pat Gehigan and LAP and all the multi people that I'm talking to, there's little or no faith left in these organisations that carry out examinations. I mean, it's very easy to come along and say the reasons are multifactorial, but that's not saying anything.
No, true. Well, I can speak for myself.
Yes, yeah.
I can speak for Tom Slevin, the vet in Castlecomer. I can speak for Michael Lamont. I can speak for Jim Curley. They're three vets. None of them three men have any faith in the Irish authorities over what's done. And the reason being is that there was lots of things found on our farm in postmortems and different things, and they were all explained away by one explanation or another.
Yes.
The bigger picture was never taken into context here. That's all I can tell you.
Yes. And it's very, very sad in another way that you had to seek European help, that your own bodies paid for by the Irish taxpayer to protect people like you and animals and wildlife and the environment, like what's going on in Limerick City with the incinerator proposal. It beggars belief.
Yeah, what it is all I can speak about is our case.
Of course.
We went to Brussels for the seek help.
Yes.
The Brussels people came over and they said it was most likely was the big factory was causing our problem.
Yes.
They asked us back a few times, and in 2012 they agreed to do a scientific review of the case.
Yes.
But sadly they never done it, and they handed our case back to Ireland. And Ireland was meant to look at our case again.
Yes.
But it fell with the Dáil at the time around 2013 or 14,
yes.
I'm not sure the year, and
yes.
since then we have done nothing about it.
But sure, look at the wind farm debacle. The Irish people are now, not the Irish government, the Irish people have been fined €5 million for not acting on the advice of a report from Europe, number one, about the mudslides, the environmental impact. Somebody didn't do their job, the EPA or whoever did not do their job, and €15,000 of a daily fine progressing that the Irish taxpayers, you and me and Pat and everyone else in this country, have to pay, not the Irish government. So our faith in institutions are dropping very, very fast. Very fast.
Yeah, that is true. I feel that the EPA, in our case, were of very little help. If anything, I'd nearly go as far as say that they were actually a hindrance. And I don't mean to take their characters, but I just
No, as an organisation.
As an organisation, I feel that when Michael Lamb went into the lab in Kenny in Ulster, we were convinced
yes.
Michael Lamb had done everything in his power
yes.
to see what could go on, and there was no veterinary advice he could give me to change it. And sadly, I have to say the same about the Department of Agriculture. I never got any veterinary advice that was of any use to me.
Yes.
The only thing that has made the difference in our farm is the factory closed. That
yes.
is the only thing has made the difference.
Now, when the factory closed, right, we take a year out because things are, if they're allegedly going on, your cattle were very ill, they were losing weight, etc. So we say 2 years after the closure of the factory, there must have been a noticeable then increase in healthy cattle and wildlife, etc., trees, etc.
As I said, it took a year before Anthony
yes.
was, and we see that then in 2010 we noticed the cows were making better, 11, 12. Each year has been a little bit better. And we've got to the stage now with the cows that they're probably as good as ever they're going to be.
Yes.
The cattle, on the other hand, are definitely 90% of the way, so they are.
Great.
And we also notice that the environment, we also notice that the three things together we have kind of backed one another up, that the environment has improved, the cattle have improved, and the milk yields have improved. And the only common denominator here was that the factory has closed.
Yes. You don't have to be a scientist to realise there was something untoward there.
Yes.
Not purposely, we're not saying somebody went out maliciously, but what we are saying is the modus operandi of the factory was a contributing, or maybe the total factor, that was stupidly overlooked by the Irish bodies.
Yeah, well, that seems to be the case, and sadly, and from my point of view, the Hanrahans were in Tipperary years ago. They were the first case. Then there was the Askeaton farmers, and
That's correct.
Then there was the Brennans. So I don't know, and I don't know where this is going to end. I don't know where this is going to end. Somebody is going to have to step in and look at these. I feel in our case, if there had been a scientific review done, which Brussels agreed to do in 2012, this would have showed up a lot. But for some reason or another, Brussels didn't do it, and they handed the case back to Ireland. They handed it back to the people who we complained about first, so it doesn't make sense to me.
I'm just hearing so many negatives. I haven't had one positive story about the Askeaton Protocol, which is the body that investigates all of these things. Every single time, I'm not a scientific man. You're the farmer, you're the producer, you're the hard worker 365 days a year like everybody else. But the problem is, every single report that this body bring out and publish, it's the same vein. There's nothing concluding, there's nothing safeguarding public health. And it's the same that was done to you.
Yeah, one thing that alarm bells went off with us early on was these interagency groups that comprise of the Health Board,
Yes.
Agriculture, the EPA,
Yes.
the Kilkenny County Council, and Teagasc. They will not allow our vets wanted to go to the meetings.
Yes.
Both Michael and Tom Slevin are two independent practices. We have a few guys working for them each.
Yes.
And both vets wanted to go to give their opinion, and they were stopped on numerous occasions. Now they got going to one meeting, but they had to go to John McGuinness to get onto Mary Coughlin at the time for the allowed to go. But this begs the question is, why won't they take advice off the people that are on the ground, or do they want to have their own conclusions just for themselves?
But it's a cover-up. I'm sorry to say it, and I'm saying it personally. From what I've heard, and I've learned so much about the Askeaton Protocol, the Limerick Against Pollution, great people, yourself, other individual farmers that have just undergone years and years of strife and isolation, total isolation.
Yeah.
That you're on your own, and you expect, after paying taxes and everything, that the appropriate Irish bodies would come in to assist you. You had to go thousands of miles away to get any answer, and yet the answer you got was multifactorial.
Yeah, multifactorial. Well, I suppose in our case, I wrote to the Ombudsman, I wrote to the Information Commissioner. Was in Brussels 4 times.
Yes.
They agreed to do this review. It was never done. I feel if that review had been done, this would have said yes or no.
Yes. And you could have progressed from there.
Could have progressed from there and would have answered. The way it's left this as a multifactorial, it doesn't make sense to me. Imagine going to your doctor and you've been sick and he's telling you to go home, you have multifactorial issue wrong, but he doesn't tell you what's wrong. Like, that's not much good. Like,
it's useless.
Yeah.
But like what? I mean, are these? You see, I'm asking a question out there to the public at home and abroad. Are these people in the protocol? Are they qualified? Do they know what they're talking about? Have they studied the issues? And you hit a very important point there, Dan, and I'm glad you brought it up. You know, you were sidelined, and your vets, highly qualified people, were sidelined and stopped from attending the meetings, where proper information would have been given to the protocol people to go away and work on. So the dogs in the street wouldn't need high-level education to know they were stopped and they didn't want this to go any further. So there's another principle of operation behind this.
Yeah, well, as I said in the beginning, Michael Lamb wrote a letter and he said it was a toxic agent.
Yes.
Would have to be considered. Jim Crilly found cadmium in the eave shoots in 2004, and he gave his opinion. He was working for Teagasc at the time that there was something affecting the farm.
Yes.
Tom Slevin came along in 2005 and he wrote to the EPA and told him that something toxic was affecting the cattle, most likely cadmium as well. The head of Teagasc, Bill Costello, who is no longer with us, he was of the same opinion that every animal on our farm was affected. That's not disease. There is nothing else. There has to be, when every animal gets affected on a farm, there's something seriously wrong. Pollution can do this, so it wouldn't be wrong to suggest that it could have been the brick factory.
Yes, yeah. It's coming back to a core issue, and I'm delighted personally, and I'm sure your family and people are as well, that matters have progressed in a positive way since the sources of this pollution and pollutants have discontinued, that you can get on with what you know best, farming, and it's best practice as well. So our message out there to the people from the What Matters programme, like Pat Gagan, Nuala, from the Limerick Against Pollution, all of the groups all over the country that are now learning about pollution and what is right next door to them, like the Dan Brennans here from Castlecomer. It is so important that people wake up now and understand that matters cannot be allowed to progress without public intervention. And public intervention is through your county councillors and through your politicians to get them on board. And before matters really get out of hand, public health is number one. Dan, it has been great talking to you. I personally wish you the very best of luck, as all our viewers do, and hopefully your success will continue.
Thanks, John.
Right. So thanks to Dan, thanks to Pat and Nuala, and from all of us here in this wonderful surroundings of the Neela Court Hotel from John Prendergast, What Matters. Gora míle mágat agus slán.